Welcome to everybody joining us from the US, from Israel and Palestine, other places in the world. I want to welcome you to the latest in Partners for Progressive Israel's webinar series, Conversations with Israel and Palestine. My name is Rabbi Margot Hughes Robinson. I'm the Executive Director of PPI. And before we move into our conversation today, I'll do a little table setting, share a few words about Partners. We're an American not-for-profit dedicated to the achievement of a durable and just peace between Israel and its neighbors, which we believe includes an end to Israel's occupation based on a two-state solution. Partner supports Israelis and Palestinians working to ensure social justice, civil rights, Jewish-Palestinian partnership, and coexistence, and equality for all of Israel's inhabitants. So in short, we connect American progressives and the Jewish community and beyond, that's all of you, to progressive leaders and movements in the land, like our speakers today. We are really glad to be able to bring you this webinar for free, and if you enjoy it and want more programming like this, I encourage you to visit progressiveisrael.org, that's .org, and make a contribution. Also, just a quick note about upcoming programming. We're co-sponsoring a webinar conversation this Sunday, November 23rd, with our friends at Hashomer Hatzair North America on ceasefire and what's next for the movement, especially in light of the vote at yesterday's UN Security Council meeting and the announced new plan for Gaza. That conversation will be at 12 noon Eastern, which is 1700 Jerusalem time or 9 a.m. Pacific time on Sunday, the 23rd. And if you're in DC, in Washington, please join us on December 7th for the closing night of the new musical November 4th about the Rabin assassination and its aftermath, and stay for a post-performance talkback conversation featuring myself and former Ambassador Rabbi David Saperstein in conversation with journalist Ron Campais. And I also want to thank my colleague Ron Skolnick, who coordinates these webinars on behalf of PPI. So I just want to give a quick note also about the chat and Q&A, brief housekeeping. The chat is open. That's for us to connect with one another, but the questions should be in the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. You can submit questions, you can upvote other people's questions, you can respond. So questions that you want our moderator to respond to and ask will go in the Q&A. Friendly, like, it's so good to see you here on this webinar, as well as resources and links that come up in the conversation will live in the chat. Now, please let me introduce our panel in brief. Starting with Dr. Fahira Haloon, who specializes in conflict analysis and resolution with decades of professional experience working in intergovernmental and international organizations, academia, and NGOs. She's currently the Director of Palestinian Advocacy and runs that department at the Land for All initiative. She received a doctorate in 2019 in conflict analysis and resolution at George Mason University in the US. She also worked at the Office of the United Nations Special Coordinator for the Middle East Peace Process in Jerusalem and is the first civil society and peacebuilding consultant at that office. Since 2021, she's been a member of the study group at Van Leer Jerusalem Institute, a place that holds a very special place in my heart as well, developing principles on partnership-based peace for solving the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. And she was a board member and part of the core team that established the very first Museum of the Palestinian People in Washington, D.C. Recommend folks to go if they haven't yet, which opened its doors in June of 2019. Also with us, Professor Emeritus Oren Yiftachel, who's a geography and planning researcher, head of the Just City Lab at Ben-Gurion University in Beersheba, and an honorary professor at the Development Planning Unit at University College London. He's published 11 books and over 110 scholarly articles in 6 different languages. His most recent book, co-edited with Nisa Memon, is titled Theorize, Debating the Southeast Turn in Urban Studies, and it came out in 2023. He's an activist in human rights, social justice, and peace organizations, and is a co-founder of the Palestinian-Israeli peace movement, A Land for All. Last and certainly not least, our board member and moderator today, Rabbi Andrea London, is a nationally recognized Jewish leader who served at Beth Emet Synagogue since 2000 and was named the congregation's senior rabbi in 2010. Rabbi London is deeply engaged in all aspects of congregational life, including worship, life cycle events, counseling and support, adult education, social action, and interfaith relationships. She strives to teach and encourage individuals and communities through contemplative, social, and spiritually based actions, including her work with partners. So thank you all again for being here. And without further ado, I will pass it to our moderator, Rabbi London.
Thank you. It's really an honor and a privilege to be here with you, Fahira and Oren, and really looking forward to your presentation. Oren and Fahira are going to present, and then we'll have an opportunity to ask them some questions. As Margot noted, you'll see that there's a Q&A box, so please put your questions there, and I will be collecting them and asking them after their formal presentations. But we're Really excited. All of us are on the webinar, very eager to hear about how we can be supportive of moving this conflict into a resolution and have great hopes that a land for all could possibly lead us in that direction. So we're going to start with Fahira, I think.
Actually, with Oren, thank you so
Oh,
much.
start with Oren. Okay, we'll start with Oren.
Oh,
Excuse me.
thank you.
Okay, good evening, everybody. Many thanks for the invitation. We're very excited about it. As much as we are worried about the current situation and the current crisis, we are at a very regressive time, and this is why it's heartening to have a progressive group. In some circles in Israel, you cannot even mention this term progressive anymore. And so we need to return to this path. It's the only way forward. It's had major successes, progressive societies are the most peaceful, the most democratic, the most economically thriving in the world. And we shouldn't forget that with the onslaught that we are under at the moment, and I'm very grateful, hence, for actually working together towards this goal. Also, the position that our peace movement takes, we have to say it up front, we support international law, we support the rights of Palestinians and the rights of Israelis, two nations that live on that land. And this is actually quite a point of departure for us. So I will share a PowerPoint. So we start with that nice banner, nice poster, a better kind of river to the sea. And I put on the left the very common slogan in the Palestinian, pro-Palestinian demonstration, from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, which doesn't mention Israel. And also Netanyahu, in his speech in the UN, but in many places in his whole government, is from the river to the sea, without any mention of the Palestinians. So you can see this duality of misrecognition that, of course, is the opposite to reconciliation and peace. So thank you for that good title. So how we start our journey, which started about 13 years ago, a group of people gathered in Bet Jala, Bethlehem, people that were frustrated with Israeli politics, with Palestinian politics, and thought that the whole path towards peace, of course, is very problematic at the time, and it's become worse since then. But we developed a new vision. And it begins with these two magnets, fridge magnets, that I bought in Bab el Amud in Jerusalem, which in English is the gate of Damascus, I think. On these identical magnets, one of them says Israel and the other one says Palestine. And actually, they're made in China. But anyhow, you could see how this is a point of departure. And Aleph Bet Yoshua, one of the most famous, notable Israeli authors, commented on this point. The deep reason why the Israeli-Palestinian conflict is so protracted is the overlapping vision of the homeland by both people. This will not go away. So this is a point of departure, how to resolve the conflict. It's not the only one. Also, it's a very small land. So I put it here with Italian. It's smaller than Sardinia. Just think about it in terms of the possibilities of partition and possibilities of other resolutions. As we said, Israel itself, this is the 70th anniversary of Israel banner, Netanyahu. The map includes the whole of Palestine under the title Israel. And so do Palestinians. And you can see the Fatah and the Hamas both have the whole land as the homeland on their banners. So this is something that requires solution. And let's look at 80 years of attempts to resolve the conflict, nearly 80 years. They all ended up in failure. And we claim in our movement that none of these visions actually was practical or just. So the inability to resolve the conflict is not accidental. First and foremost, partition, hard partition. Since 1947, this is the international consensus. But there were so many failures, so many attempts since the 60s, I suppose, since 242. And it's still the international consensus. And it's still people keep harping on two states, two-state solution and ignoring what's happening on the ground. It's a reality in which Israel is using this kind of slogan, as some people say, to actually colonize Palestine and to make this solution almost impossible. So this, I don't have to convince you that it's been a failure. The other possibility is separation. Recently in Israeli politics, in the last 10, 15 years maybe, hardly anybody talks about peace anymore, but they talk about separation. And separation is a unilateral approach. Unilateral approach one, I guess. And it happened in Gaza famously with a disengagement and in some of the Oslo Accord, and also ended up in total failure. Of course, because when there's no partnership and no equality with the Palestinian, this kind of solution tend to be so lopsided that they end up crushing. And of course, the 7th of October, the horrific attack by Hamas, the worst terrorist attack ever in the history of the conflict, has demonstrated that a hard approach with huge walls and fortification just brought us more and more hostility. And of course, Israel's response, this total destruction of Gaza, also demonstrated that to a great extent what a failure it is. Annexation is Israel's unilateral approach too. And this is actually what the government is doing now. It's official policy and its practices every day, forget Gaza for a minute, is to annex the West Bank. They're not hiding it anymore. For many years they hid it. Now they don't hide it anymore. A plethora of new settlements, probably about 80 to 100 new settlements, what they call outposts, new farms, confiscation of lands, ethnically cleansing Palestinians, violence by settlers. This is the policy now. And Trump can say Israel will not annex the West Bank, but it's already annexing it. On the other hand, another approach on the table, so to speak, is the Islamic State. Hamas goals in the charter of Hamas and in many of its speeches, not all of its speeches, sometimes they have a bit of pragmatism, but by and large, there's a vision of a unilateral, violent approach to overtake the Jews by Islamic State. And this is a big force. It's a big force that won the Palestinian elections and now is weakened, of course, because of the horrific events, but it's still, I would say, a third of Palestinians support the Hamas. Then there is another agenda, one democratic state, which for the last 20 years, most intellectuals around the world, most Palestinian diaspora, especially in universities, authors, artists, they say, forget all these kind of complexities. Let's just have one state for all and equality, rights. But of course, that's apolitical because the world has recognized Israel. Israel is a member state of the United States. It will not disappear. Not a state like Israel, any states will not disappear because it's protected by the whole international regime. And Israel is a given fact. It's there and it has to stay. It has to stay safe in its recognized borders. So thinking about one state and anybody thinking that Israel will give up its existence to something like Israel-Palestine or something that is a common land where actually there will be a Palestinian majority is a political approach. So there is 8 years of failures and horrific results, about 200,000 people killed by the conflict, about 80% of them Palestinians, displacements, occupation, wars, terror, suffering. A new vision is very, very badly needed. So, and of course, this is the geography of it. I'm a geographer, so I have to show a map. Otherwise, I will, betray my profession. But you can see the map, how fragmented it is and how uneven it is and how not allowing progress towards Palestinian self-determination as it is now. So enter Alpha, Land for All. This is the acronym. And these are the two CEOs that we have, the excellent CEOs, Huda Hardal and May Pundak, and this is the interview that they had in Haaretz just 3 months ago. But we started, as I said, about 12 years ago. This is one of our first conferences, big conference in Jerusalem. Everybody looks younger, a lot of attendance, a lot of interest all the time. This is a big article in Makor Rishon, which is a Jewish right-wing paper that did on us in 2014. And the unique issue here is that the person on the left, Elias Cohen, is a settler. So there are settlers, small amount of settlers, that also look at our vision favorably. And also in much of the international media, The Guardian, The Washington Post, The New York Times, and in Arab media, etc. So what do we say? What are the key principles that we say? We say that you cannot partition the land, but you cannot unite it either. Okay, that's a point of departure. It's the same homeland. You cannot divide it, partition it, but you cannot unite it either, as we said. So we said there should be two sovereign states, but without partition. On the 67 borders, we don't try to meddle with borders because then it's endless, and that's what Trump tried to do in its deal of the century, and of course ended up in disaster. So keep the international border, just change the management. The gradual free movement, Schengen style. Schengen is the European regime of movement that every 10 years became more and more flexible, easier to move. In the beginning, borders were closed, then you could move with a visa, then you could go automatic visa, then you could actually go in and live and work in other places, etc., etc. So we imagine this kind of gradual, making the whole land free, but Palestinian citizens that move into Israel will remain Palestinian citizens, not Israeli citizens, so they don't affect the local politics, which is a big fear of Jews. And likewise, Jews that move to the West Bank, and there will be quite a few, they will stay Israeli citizens and will not affect Palestinian politics. So there is this kind of European models or Bosnian models where free movements. There's no forced uprooting. That's another thing that is important, especially to do with the settlement, the Jewish settlements. We feel that they can stay under Palestinian sovereignty. It will be up to the Palestinians, of course, to legalize them in their urban and regional plans, in their land policies, and we believe that most of the Jews will leave, but it's important that some can stay and live as Jews under Palestinian rule. And of course, there are 2 million Palestinians under Israeli rules, as Fahera will elaborate. It's already happened. Right of return will be honored. We think without the right of return, there will be no resolution to the conflict. However, it will be implemented to the Palestinian state, not to Israel proper. So like most refugee issues around the world, I would say all of them, people return or repatriated into their state. And so they could return into Palestine, but then as residents, they could also move to Israel as a free movement. So this actually answers, not fully, but it answers the most possible way, the right of return. Jerusalem for us is key. Of course, Jerusalem is an explosive situation, such a small city, 1 square kilometers, half a square mile, and with so many sacred sites. We think it should be an autonomous capital region with the model of Brussels or with the model of Chandigarh in India, whoever is familiar. It is a capital of 2 states, but it is an autonomous metropolitan area or region, and that actually neutralizes the very, very hot, passionate conflict over the sites of Jerusalem. We also think that it should be managed also by the institutions of the big religions, Christianity, Protestant and Catholics, and Islam and Judaism should have management of the religious sites, and that also will neutralize the national conflict over it. There will be joint institutions. They will probably start as thin institutions dealing with environment, land management, trade, labor. The economy probably will be joint. It's already a joint economy. We call it the shekel space. All the Palestinians are using the shekel. International law, we already said, we abide by international law. We stretch international law the most possible way, and there is self-determination for Israelis and for Palestinians, but nonetheless, it's a different model. Restitution and redistribution justice is very, very important. No new injustices. So in reparation, compensation, return, that mostly is for the Palestinians, but some Jews as well, it's you have to actually guard very much that no new injustices are being caused by that. Palestinian Arabs in Israel, there would be a national minority, as the model of national minorities around the world. They have collective rights, they have individual rights, they have some regional institutions. And we think that the Palestinian and Israel have a key role in leading to this binational confederation. They are probably the most important player because they are Palestinians and they are Israelis as well. I have to actually qualify that maybe the Americans have also a most important role, but that's a different scale. And we can talk about what the Americans and America can do, or the United States can do. But in this complex reality of Israel-Palestine, the Palestinian citizens of Israel are very, very important. So why Alpha? Why are we a better model? How much more time do I have, Rabbi? 5 more minutes? Okay. So we call ourselves a pragmatic utopia. That is, it sounds utopian at the moment, but it is actually pragmatic because it starts with the geography as it is. We're not asking to uproot any people. We're not asking to change borders. These are things that are very, very difficult. We say, leave it as it is, but manage it in a different way. It's the only way to get 2 states, but differently. There's no possibility with all the attempt to create a Palestinian state on its own that will be isolated, it will be enclaved, it will be surrounded if it's just a state of its own, whereas if in cooperation with Israel, it actually could thrive. It treats the core issues that are ignored by all peace initiatives, the settlements, the borders, the right of return, the Arabs in Israel, Jerusalem. We treat all these core issues without which you don't resolve the conflict. You might actually have a respite, a ceasefire, a temporary agreement, but we're actually interested in resolving it gradually, but resolving it. It minimizes displacement and uprooting. It's a positive experience that comes up with similar protracted conflict, like Northern Ireland, like Bosnia, like the whole of Europe, like South Africa, in various ways, the together and apart combination, which is a little bit complex. It's not a simple solution, but it's positive feedback from those. And I think the last point is also important, new vision that can mobilize hope. And at the moment, times are very dark. People are very desperate. Palestinians, terrible suffering in Gaza. Many people are leaving the land. Many Israelis are leaving the land, something like 200,000 since 2023. So we want to regenerate hope for both people. I have some charts. I'll send the Rabbi or Ron the PowerPoint if you want. How will it work with the institution, with the 2 sovereign spaces that actually join with one identity, how it will work in Jerusalem. We have a plan. And just some slides from different events that we had that caused quite a lot of interest. One of the highlights was appearing in the European Parliament and with the European Commission, also in the House of Commons. We also went to the Congress. Our CEOs now are they're part of the Emmanuel Macron initiative. They are very, very active, and we are hoping to get a breakthrough that some key leader will adopt this. This is just this year, last year, also going again to Brussels, mobilizing with parliament members from Germany, from France, from Italy. Unfortunately, Britain is not there anymore because Britain is actually a very good source of support. So I just want to finalize with one of the members, or at least supporters of our movement. I think he's a member, Marzouk El-Halabi, who is a poet. And he has a poem called Honesty Hasn't Killed Anybody Yet. الصراحة ما قتلت حتى واحد الآن. And it's really important to think about the end of it. So he is talking to Palestinians. How can they talk to the Jews? And he said, if they open their maps to move their lines and calculate sites, borders, and safe passages, tell them, roll up your maps. I have an idea. Let the land be 2 languages, 2 names, 2 colors, 2 braids. Think about the future so you are protected from the cruel past and for preventing you from falling into the abyss with your foe, to liberate history and tell a 3rd peaceful story. So we are telling a 3rd story, and I'm very, very glad to present it to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that excellent overview, Oren. Really appreciate it. Fahira?
Thank you so much. I'm so excited, and thank you for the opportunity. Let me just okay. 1 minute. Okay, so I think I will, first of all, I will take you through my argument about the Palestinian citizen of Israel, since I am Palestinian citizen of Israel, and to say a little bit how this division of the land for all plays Palestinian citizen of Israel in very central and important role, especially for promoting a just binational reality. And why I am saying that, actually, over the last 2 decades, I have been studying the role of the Palestinian citizen of Israel. Which role can Palestinian citizen of Israel play in solving the Palestinian-Israeli conflict? It's not an easy question, especially in this reality. While Palestinians, they are 20% of the population, and they are suffering since the establishment of the State of Israel from policies of oppression, exclusion, racism. So how can this group also play an important role in promoting solving the Palestinian-Israeli conflict? And I will say why also the vision of the land for all really placed them in an important place. Actually, the land for all vision, somehow, as Oren said, it will bring all Palestinians groups under the idea of a shared vision. It connects Palestinians inside Israel. It connects Palestinians in the West Bank, in Gaza, and in East Jerusalem, and in the diaspora to discuss a shared vision for the Palestinians and the Israeli conflict, which it doesn't just ask Palestinians to react to the Israeli oppression policies. This dialogue and this discussion among the Palestinian group doesn't just discuss how they will react to the oppressed policies that happening now in the dialogue between the different Palestinian groups. But this engagement with one another is engagement in shaping a shared Palestinian political vision, one that includes the relationship with the Israeli Jews and lay out a real path toward reconciliation, which that means the land for all vision will bring the different Palestinian groups in a discussion about their shared future, while they will discuss how their shared future with the Jews should look like in a path for reconciliation. And this kind of dialogue plays, I will argue, this kind of dialogue, it will talk about mutual recognitions of Palestinians and Israelis, like Palestinians in the diaspora should promote a mutual recognition also for the Israelis. This shared homeland will ensure full equality across the land. It will end all forms of domination. It will ensure shared institution and shared power. And it will also talk about the right of return. It will also talk about transitional justice tools for the past injustices like the Nakba, the occupation, the war crimes since October 7. All these very sensitive issues, I will argue, that place the Palestinians inside Israel in very important role. And I will say why it placed them in very important role. This placed Palestinian citizens in an important role, not just as a victims. Palestinians inside Israel are victims, but I will argue, but it also placed them as a moral and political agent for change. And I will say a little bit some points why I argue about this. So we cannot ignore that Palestinian inside Israel has been in 76 years under racism, oppression, and also after the 7th of October, the incitements and the oppression against them has been reached for a lot of dangerous levels. So they don't live in a very easy life inside Israel, especially also the general environment inside Israel became dehumanizing the Palestinians in the West Bank, and also dehumanizing Palestinians inside Israel. And any attempt of Palestinians inside Israel to show any solidarity or any questioning on the genocidal war, they will pay a price. So there is a lot of oppressed policies against Palestinians inside Israel. And also with the rise of the right-wing extreme parties, the incitements against them as internal enemies has becoming even more and more strong. Having said that, I am not saying that I am ignoring this part of them being victims. It is very dominant elements in their identity. But I also want to argue that beside in addition to them being victims, they are also holding a very unique potential by being citizen of Israel and also by being Palestinians and belong to the Palestinian people. This role, I argue, is not yet fully activated. It faces a lot of challenges and it needs to be unlocked in order to create any historical change in the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. And I will say some also about the current reality. Now, why I think they play an important role, it's not new for you, but our relationship, the relationship of the Palestinians inside Israel with the Jewish Israelis is different from the rest of the Palestinian groups. Like when the Palestinian groups are coming to talk together about shared future, about mutual recognition, about right of return, Palestinians inside Israel will bring to this dialogue their relationship with the Jewish Israelis. And it's a different relationship than the other Palestinian group have with the Israelis. They live under the Israeli space. They share the hospitals together. They share a classroom in the universities. They work NGOs. They also share friendship ties. Palestinians inside Israel knows that collective psychological barriers to peace. So in this complexity embedded their potential role for building trust, shared structure to promote equality and shared responsibility and confederation. I want to emphasize something that is very important. When Palestinians in the diaspora and in the West Bank talk today about the relationship with the Jewish Israelis, they describe it under the colonial regime relationship. And they talk about decolonializing Palestine. I would say that the relationship between Palestinians inside Israel and the Jewish Israelis cannot be just seen in the colonial lens. It is in some of it, it's in the colonial lens, but we cannot ignore the personal interactions that happening under the civil society, the majority minority relationship, the power control relation. We need to look into that, and I argue that between Palestinians and Israelis, not all of them, between some Palestinians and Israelis, there is a moral glow that has been built over the 76 years, even despite that the state of Israel is trying to exclude Palestinians in Israel from the citizenship identity. It's beyond the state of Israel, okay? Which I mean, and I want to look into this moral glow, okay? And talk about it a little bit, and also the political moral agency, which means we have to look into the dynamic between Palestinians and Jews inside Israel in a complex way that this generates the important role that they can play. Now, to go why I think they are a corner a stone for the confederation. First of all, if we are talking about shared homeland, sharing the homeland, building shared institution, which the Land for All vision wants to promote, so it should be built in shared power and also challenging the Jewish supremacy that exists today between Palestinians and Israelis. If we look to Palestinians inside Israel, there is, despite the racism and the state violence, there are shared society initiatives that has been evolving in the last 2 decades that are building structure of equality between Palestinians and Jews inside Israel. They are not a lot. I am not claiming that they are a lot, but they are challenging, like me, even us in the Land for All team. We are building a Jewish Palestinian team, and we are challenging the Israeli team when they don't see us, when they are publishing something without to ask Palestinian about to look into the text. We do challenge these kind of partnerships that happening inside Israel, even that they are not dominant, but they are challenging the Jewish supremacy and also building the civic structures and national and civic structures for true equality between Palestinians and Israelis. I claim that these structures that have been built now by the shared society, by the coalition between Arabs and Jews inside Israel, even to struggle against the occupation, even to struggle against the war. These kind of structures that trying to build a formula for shared power will be the cornerstones for the confederation and will be the cornerstones for any cross borders partnership that will need to happen to promote the shared homeland that we are talking about between Palestinians and Israelis, and not just to promote the shared homeland. You know, when Palestinians now see that there are some coalitions, there are some partnerships between Arabs and Jews inside Israel that build in real equality, this gives them hope despite the fact of despair. It's not an easy reality, but it's inspiring for them. These kind of models will be the inspiring models for any partnership that will be happening across borders. Another very important point that I want to talk about it's the issue of trust and hope. I go to the so I in the beginning I said that I live in between Palestinian inside Israel and me. I live in between. I travel between Israel and also I go to the West Bank and discuss all the issue of ending the occupation and solving the conflict. And whenever I present for the Palestinians the vision of the land for all or solving the conflict, the first thing that they will say that there is no partner in the other side. They don't believe that any Jewish Israelis seek really to promote a real equality. They live under the violent occupation, settler violent, apartheid regime, all the settler violence that expanding in the last 2 years in very dangerous and concerning way. They cannot think about a different future. I want to say that they cannot envision a different future with the Israelis. Today, in order to push Palestinian and Israelis from a darkness reality, we need them to envision a different future rather than a zero-sum game. Palestinians in the West Bank cannot envision that they can live in the future with Israelis in a shared homeland, in a different reality than the occupation. But Palestinians inside Israel can envision a different future, can bring this discourse about the possibility of different future. Palestinians inside Israel today have to break the right-wing extreme discourse about the zero-sum game and the ethnic cleansing for Palestinians. And we need Palestinian partners with Jewish Israelis to raise a different discourse rather than about zero-sum game. We need this discourse to become dominant and to come from inside Israel in order also to shape a different future and also to demand a different actions toward reality. So Palestinians inside Israel today, I would say, are obligated to envision a different future with some Jewish Israelis, and they are also obligated to break this discourse that there is no partner in the other side. It's very, very dangerous discourse that is dominating the consciousness of Palestinians and dominating the consciousness of Israelis, okay? And we also in the Land for All and any group that works for peace building today, I think we have to put strategy in order to break this discourse in a way that create a different discourse that there is a partner in the other side. Maybe this partner is not powerfully enough, but there are Palestinians. I have the obligation as Palestinian citizen of Israel, if I am building reconciliation and shared future, I have to tell Jewish Israelis that there are Palestinians in the West Bank that they don't want to go for revenge. They want to live with you in the future. I have to point for them about the partners that speak a moral language that goes with a shared future. I have also to tell Palestinians about Jewish partners inside Israel that speak language of justice and ending the occupation and want to promote a collective rights for Palestinians. I have today, in order to save the two people from this darkness. The two people are in dehumanization toward each other and in despair, and they are looking for a light inside the other side. Even with all the anchor, they are looking for a light in the other side, that the other side don't want to erase them, don't want to move them. So we have Palestinian inside Israel today. In the current reality, we have an obligation, political and moral obligation. Palestinian inside Israel also build trust with Jewish Israelis and build trust with Palestinians. Eh, I will go for another, okay, and I will talk a little bit about this kind, because Palestinians inside Israel know the psychosocial barriers within the Israeli society and also have moral commitment toward the Israeli Jews with all the oppressed regime that also the collective Jews has been putting on us. But there is moral commitment of most of the Palestinian Israelis toward the Jewish society. And I believe the Palestinian inside Israel, with all this trust that they built with Jewish and with Israelis, and being able to understand the psychosocial fear and barriers within the Israeli society, they will help to reframe the hard issues about like the right of return, balancing justice and fear, which mean we have now to put a formula how we will imply a transitional justice to the right of return. And if we discuss right of return with Palestinians in the diaspora, the first thing that they will say, Palestinians should return back to their places and Jews go out of their houses. Or Palestinians in the West Bank will say like something similar, or they cannot envision how we can apply the transitional justice and right of return in a way that we do not create new injustices to the Jewish Israelis, and also take into consideration the Jewish fear of they want to be the majority, and they don't want like the fear from the Palestinians. And Palestinians inside Israel will help to find the right formula for transitional justice, and also for the right formula how we conduct right of return in a way that will still balance the justice and fear, and take into consideration and also challenge any initiative for a right of return that will create a new injustice for the Jewish inside Israel. We will challenge this, Palestinians inside Israel. It's a little bit sensitive, but I will be happy to talk about it more later. The other very important role that I think Palestinians inside Israel will play in this vision for shared future, okay, is speaking moral truth. Like in order for us to play an important role, and currently we are playing this, we have to challenge morally the Palestinians and also the Israelis. And one of the very important challenges is that Palestinians inside Israel do challenge the armed struggle as a tool for liberation. When we sit Palestinians and Palestinians in the West Bank, Palestinians in the diaspora, and the Palestinian inside Israel to talk about a vision to struggle against the occupation, and the vision for the Palestinian national right, we will challenge the armed resistance as a struggle, as a tool for the liberation. And after the 7th of October, the Palestinian leaders inside Israel has a very strong voice that the 7th of October atrocities and the horrifying actions is not something that and harming civilians, it's not the tool for liberation. And they were emphasizing this, while Palestinians in the West Bank and in the diaspora will face will be challenging for them to express this, especially being under occupation and under oppression and violation of the Israeli domination. It will be hard for them or challenging to go out with dominant voice in this matter, or even if they will go out in dominant voice with this matter, will be concerning from the collective criticism against them. But Palestinian inside Israel, by being under the umbrella of Israeli citizenship, they have the eligibility and the power to challenge the armed resistance, even in the discourse. But we don't just have to challenge the Palestinians. We need also to challenge the Israelis, especially today, that to say that Israelis in the last decades, they were avoiding the real problem of the occupation and talking about internal reforms and talking about doing peace with the Arab world without talking about ending the occupation and promoting the collective rights of the Palestinians. And even now with the ceasefire, most of the Israelis got back to the status quo, that now the alive hostages came back, and we are somehow returning back to our regular life, while the occupation continue to function, and the settler violence and the domination and the supremacy over the Palestinian, which is okay. So Palestinian inside Israel, with their relationship with the other Jews inside Israel, we have to warn against maintaining the status quo. And even now with the ceasefire, we have to emphasize that ceasefire without a political vision that ensure statehood for Palestinian and self-determination and ending the Israeli occupation will not ensure Israeli security. It will not, and will return back to the 7th of October circle. But also to be a moral challenge, a moral agency, there is also the discourse about accountability for past injustices, because our goal in the Land for All is to create the path for reconciliation and for a shared future. So how you create the path for reconciliation and how you deal with the past injustice when you are committed to create a different future. This is very challenging conversation for us as well, Palestinians inside Israel who cooperate with Jewish liberals to end the occupation and to promote a solution. How we will deal with the Nakba, how we will deal with the past injustices for the apartheid regime, how we will deal with the 7th of October event and also horrifying events, and also with the genocide war followed that. What should be our discourse on accountability about these events in a way that will help Palestinians and Israelis to move for a different future, that put some stones toward reconciliation. It's very challenging discussion now, especially that Palestinians, we are not post-genocide, but it's somehow there is now the discourse within Palestinian society about accountability. So what should be the discourse of Palestinian and Jews who are creating a future vision? What should be our discourse on accountability and on what happened in the last 2 years in a way that will help both sides to move forward? So this is something that the last one, I don't know if I am going over time, yes? Can I have another 5, or I didn't hear you. I will finish.
Can you give us another minute? Because there's a couple of really good questions here, lots of good questions,
Okay,
but I want to make sure we
so
get to them.
So I usually argue that this vision, but some of the people within the initiative talk about different. I argue that we are creating also a third identity by bringing all the elements of two state, one homeland. Because if Palestinian and Israeli will live in a shared homeland, we have to create a shared values of equality, moral responsibility, shared interest, shared institutions, and no domination. And this create a shared values which not exist now in the practice of the national identities. Oren will say it's a third way, okay, beyond nationalism. And I would say that Palestinians inside Israel move usually between the borders of the state and the borders of the homeland. They move somehow now, like when I move from Haifa to Ramallah, I move between the borders of the state to the borders of the homeland, and I move through this third identity. So, and I will argue that the vision of land for all will bring a rethinking of both Jewish Zionist and Palestinian national identities that today exclude the other side from within it. But if we promote the land for all vision, there will be a rethinking of this both Jewish identities, and I think Palestinian inside Israel will be an important player to challenge the practice of the both national identities.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Fahira. If maybe you want to turn off the sharing so everybody can see your faces, and I'm going to try to ask try to lump together some of the wonderful questions that we've received from people here. Fahira, I was really, moved by what you were talking about in terms of Palestinian citizens of Israel and their important role of talking to Palestinians in the West Bank and trying to build trust and trying to be that bridge between Israeli Jewish society and Palestinian society. But we know, and certainly Oren knows this as well, that this idea of building trust is exceedingly difficult, especially with everything that has transpired since October 7th and before that, but even more so now. And in Israel and in the Jewish community, we just commemorated the 30th yahrzeit of Yitzhak Rabin, and I think for many, really seeing the death of what had ever had been part of the peace process. And so, really, the question is that there are people on both sides who really want to sabotage this process, whether they be Hamas or others or the Netanyahu regime. And so, has a Land for All been able to grow significantly enough that they can push through this? And how can we in the United States and other partners outside of Israel be helpful to move this process forward when we know that within Israeli society that there's not yet a majority that agree with you, and that there are going to be people who are going to try to sabotage what you are doing here? So, Oren, Fahira, I'm hoping that you'll be able to respond to that.
I thank very much Fahira for her talk, because she raised issues that are not commonly discussed, and she really speaks out of the box, because it's very easy, not easy, but very common among Palestinians to put all the blame on Israel, which many times they're right. But you need agency, you need to mobilize, you need to change the situation. And we also, on the left, on the progressive left in Israel, we are also minorities. We don't suffer like the Palestinians, that's for sure. But also we would need to take initiative, not to accept that one day something will happen. So having said that, our movement suffered a crisis on the 7th of October. There's no denial that this was a total blow to peace activists, to the idea of shared existence. And it took us a while to work it out. And now we are bigger and stronger than ever, our movement. It doesn't mean that we actually made a breakthrough yet, and we very much hope that forums like this will help us to break through, that some leaders, especially Palestinian leaders, I would say, because it's usually the minority or the colonized that actually offer initiatives. And I think that it's more likely, but also maybe from the Israeli side. But for a while, it was a shock. Everybody was in a shock, because it was a terrible attack. And then immediately the obliteration that, turned into the genocide of Gaza started. So there was no time to breathe. But what we figured out after 2 or 3 months of discussions, etc., that this actually proved how right our vision is. Not that we always think that we are right, and of course we need to adjust ourselves, but it is a separation, the unequal separation, the locking up of Palestinians in Gaza, in an illegal siege that was, and the enclaves in the West Bank, and also the oppression in Israel. There's no room without any horizon of equality for reconciliation. Like Fahira now said, when you actually oppress so much, your prickles come out. This is natural for nations and for people. So this is why we actually looked at the 7th of October with all the horrific crimes that were committed before and after, at the 7th of October and after, as a realization that the land has to be integrated, that separation, even the most equal separation you can think about, like Geneva Initiative, which is still based on walls and on lack of movements and on passports and on whole elaborate system of controlling movements, is bound to fail. It's bound to fail in a country that is so small and is already mixed. I would very much think that this is waking up. It was a waking up call, and we hope to convince many people. The issue of trust, of course, is extremely important, and we are at the low ebb. But trust is something that flows and ebbs with all kind of circumstances, right? When we think about Rabin, and you said that 30 years have passed, during the 90s, I mean, let's say 92, I got a warrant that the next time I meet with Palestinians from a PLO, I will be charged. It was illegal in Israeli society. And if you did surveys in the early 1990s, 85% of people said this is a crime to meet with PLO. Now then Rabin rose and they signed the Oslo Agreement and they made it legal. And suddenly you could see first of all, in practices, many people met, but also in surveys, 60, 65, 70% were suddenly thinking that it's good to meet PLO members. So this is in 1 or 2 years, and then he was assassinated, etc. So many times leadership and circumstances create different patterns of trust. And this is what I want to get to the role of the United States. Obviously, the last month or 2 months, when was the 9th of October was the ceasefire announced. The last month showed us so much the key role of the United States, even unpredictable leader, and obviously someone that is, very, very difficult to work with, like Trump, has demonstrated that if the United States wants, it can actually influence, like it did in Bosnia. I am a scholar of conflicts, and I was in Sarajevo a couple of times, and I have PhD student work. The United States, Clinton, they took the leaders and they imposed not the best peace in the world, but since 1995, nobody's being killed in Bosnia. After 180,000 people got killed in a horrific war. So think about it, and we don't think it will be paradise, but it will stabilize the situation. So Bosnia too has the Federation of Croatia and Bosniak, and then Serbs, Republika Srpska. It's not ideal, I'm not saying, but people cross, more than 1 million people cross the borders that were closed before. Sarajevo is a mixed city again, economy is mixed. It's not, until it gets into the European Union, it won't be a great success, but it is a non-failure. And this is very important. If we get to this situation, we've done something. But the international envelope, Northern Ireland with Tony Blair, again with Clinton, with the European Union, they created this. And this is what we need. All the protracted conflicts in the world had an international envelope and mobilization from inside to build that trust. It's very, very valuable that international leaders can come and say, no, we will guarantee this peace, not just a ceasefire. We'll guarantee this peace, and we will, very, very much protect the Palestinian environment in the beginning. We will allow Israel and Palestine together, trade agreements, scientific agreements, military guarantees, etc., etc. And that's how it worked. It worked. Northern Ireland and Ireland itself is also kind of confederation, because Northern Ireland is still formally part of Britain, but the border is open. There is, free trade, etc., etc. All the thing with Brexit actually showed that Ireland is more connected than Northern Ireland to Britain. And I think this idea will be that. And then trust will be built. Trust will be built. As I said, from 1992 to 1993, there was a huge jump in trust. So I would urge all the people in America to talk to your Congress people, to your leaders. It's now maybe even the Republicans are moving in the right direction. I don't think it's a great UN Security Council resolution, but it is in the right direction, I would say. At least some stabilization force under King Trump, but whatever King Trump will decide, but at least there is now separation and protection of the Palestinians, and disarmament, or at least partial disarmament of Hamas, and some clauses, very, very vague, too vague, but some clauses that talk about a Palestinian state. I think it has to be much, much stronger. If it's just a first resolution, it will, it will be perhaps good for now, but it needs much, much more. And the role of the Americans and the United States as a leadership is invaluable.
Fakira, I want to give you a chance for final words here before we wrap up, and just also one more encouragement to both of you and to A Land for All is that as there are things that are coming up in the UN and issues are happening in Israel, that we in the United States can be helpful with our representatives. You post on your on the website, you send out notes to us, because we can mobilize here to try to figure out how to mobilize our assistance here with our own government, because we do know that's going to be very important. So ways in which we can do that more quickly and easily
Just
will be
one more
very important.
sentence, Rabbi, is that we
Yeah,
are actually restructuring now the movement a little bit, and we're going to have some kind of an international membership that will be very almost symbolic. I don't know what it will be, $10 maybe. I'm not authorized to say but it will be something very small, but you'll get all the material. And in times of some kind of activities, online activities and petitions and things, we can have a wider community.
perfect.
Thank you, Oren. I know that I don't have enough time, and I want to emphasize that the role of a Palestinian agency is very challenging. It's not easy to take agency for Palestinians inside Israel and also Palestinians in the West Bank. We go and work and we go and try to expand in the West Bank, and there is like the victimhood identity and the despair is very dominant. So it's not an easy to ask Palestinians to take the lead for their future, but at the same time there is a vacuum also in the West Bank for a political vision, and there is also a thirstiness within the young leaders for a different future, to take also agency to shape their future. And we talk that we don't want, I talk to them, don't wait for the Israelis to shape your future. They put vision, you need to put also your vision. This is the agency that you have to take, and this is my conversation with Palestinian young leaders. And there are some people that are thirsty for our vision, and we are expanding in the West Bank with challenges. It's not an easy, and I think American people have really like a power in order to emphasize that now the ceasefire and not to allow Israelis to go for status quo and to keep the status quo on any discussion about the ceasefire or the future of Gaza, without to put that in a vision of a Palestinian state and ending the occupation. It's not a real peace. It's not the peace that will ensure justice and security for both sides. So you have also to challenge that the real issue is to end the occupation and the apartheid, and to promote a statehood for Palestinians, and also to emphasize the potential embedded within Palestinians inside Israel, and to push back against any incitements and any racism that the right-wing parties and the Israeli government put for us, especially now we are heading toward elections. And I know that the Israeli government will emphasize us as internal enemies, and we need your support to be against this discourse, and also to emphasize our central role in any historical change between Palestinians and Israelis. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you. Amen and bravo. We're here to support you. Thank you.
Thank you so much again, Fahira, Oren, and Rabbi Andrea, and thank you to everyone who joined us. We really hope you enjoyed this webinar. If you want to share this conversation with your friends or your wider community, a recording will be online in a few days. Make sure you're signed up on our email list and or subscribe to our YouTube page, which we put in the chat, so you'll be alerted as soon as it's available. And for those who missed the opening, I'll just say again, while today's program's been free, generous contributions are what enables PPI to deliver these events at no cost. So please visit progressiveisrael.org, check out our upcoming programming and resources, and if you can, make a donation. Thank you again to everyone who joined us, our fabulous panelists, our wise and thoughtful moderator. We're so grateful to have spent this time learning together. Please be well. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you for